guest. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jolie Duarte. I am with the Louisiana Victim Outreach Program, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our first ever Survivor Series webinar. We're kicking off in Northwest Louisiana. We have created this event with the intention of inviting victims, survivors, and supporters to learn more about the local services available to you in your community. You're going to hear from a variety of organizations today about how they're working to serve victims and survivors of crimes. We'll be discussing the services that are offered, support groups, and any upcoming events that may be happening. We'll have some time for a Q&A segment at the end for any organization. So if you can hold your questions at the end, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the little Q&A. We'll do our best to cover them. Any questions before we get started? You can write them in the chat if you have a question. Okay, but since we don't, we are going to start off with our first presenter. This is Francis Abbott. He is the Executive Director of the Pardon and Parole Board. The screen's no longer sharing, but you just turn your video.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank everybody for being with us today. So I just kind of want to go over a little bit about the Board of Pardons and Committee on Parole. As Jolie said, my name is Francis Abbott, and I currently serve as the Executive Director of the board. I do want to take a moment and recognize Jolie and all the hard work she's put in organizing this event, along with Philip Adkins and Ms. Kristen Parsons, who are two of our victim assistant coordinators in that Northwest region. So just a little bit about the board. We are a multidisciplinary board made up of governor appointed individuals. Those individuals have a variety of backgrounds, including law enforcement, corrections experience, academia, healthcare, the judicial branch, as well as probation and parole. And so they are a very well-rounded board with experiences from across the field of criminal justice. One of those members is actually a nominee from a victim outreach group, and the governor has to appoint all of those individuals, but one of them does serve as our victims advocate. Now, while the board's decisions are made each and every day by those board members, the board does get its authority through the state's constitution, so it's very important to know that. And while those decisions are made by the board, the legislature is the body who really decides which individuals are parole eligible and when they are through the laws that they put in place. So we always get a lot of questions about why individuals are parole eligible. It's not the Board of Pardons or the Committee on Parole that make individuals parole eligible or eligible at certain times for commutations, pardons, but it is the legislature. In recent years, we've seen a lot of changes in legislation, and our board has continued to progress and provide opportunities to offenders that the legislature makes parole eligible. Having said that, our board strives day in and day out to improve its decision-making process. We are constantly receiving training on informed decision-making, also trauma-informed decision-making, and new topics that come out as it relates to criminal justice. So, we have two biannual trainings each year for all of our board members, and we continue to grow our knowledge base. We have to provide a fair hearing to all individuals who are involved. And by law, we're required to notify various organizations and groups. Those include district attorney's office, the sheriff's offices, the judicial branch in the region where those crimes were committed for individuals who are coming up before us, and most importantly, victims. That notification requires 60 days. So we do send those letters out, and through our newest program, the Victim Assistance Coordinator Program, as I mentioned, Phil and Kristen are two in the Northwest, and we have a number of other ones throughout the state. It's a new program. So those individuals are providing notifications to victims and survivors of violent crimes and some property crimes when resources are available. But other than that, Probation and Parole, who works with the Department of Corrections, provides other notifications through the investigation process. So we come in contact with a number of victims day in and day out through our normal course of business. Our goal here at the Board of Pardons and Committee on Parole is to continue to provide resources. We plan to do that through strategic partnerships and referrals. Just like this event is bringing together organizations in the Northwest, we look to continue to have events like this throughout the state, but to grow out our network of service providers that we can refer clients to. We also want to continue to improve the notification process to victims and other stakeholders. We plan on doing that by trying to incorporate VINE in the coming years. There are some issues in statute that we have to overcome. Right now, our notifications are in statute, have to be sent out via certified mail. And we're just finding that more and more victims and survivors are looking for other methods through electronic mailing, email, text messaging, phone calls, and things of that nature. So we're looking to introduce some legislation this year to change and continue to improve the notification process. And one of the biggest things that we see every day is a need for continuing education to victims and survivors about their rights in the pardon and parole process, and as well as, just like we talked about, changes in legislation and things of that nature. So we hope to be a source of information to victims throughout the process. To give you a little snapshot of the landscape that we are currently working with, there are currently 2,600 individuals who are in the custody of the Department of Public Safety and Corrections or housed at local facilities. Of those individuals, and you have to excuse me, I'm looking for my stats here. Of those individuals, of those 26,000 and some change, 41% of those individuals are serving for a violent offense, and then 17% of them are serving for a property crime. So that those two different populations, as they become parole eligible, we are definitely, and if they are registered for notification, or if our coworkers, our counterparts in probation and parole are able to locate them through the pre-parole or pre-clemency investigation, they will be notified of any scheduled hearings, and comments will be requested. So that's a large number of those 26,000 individuals will more than likely require some type of notification should a hearing come up. And now currently, you have 47,000 individuals on community supervision. Now that does include 26,000 and some change that are under probation, which serve under judges or under the jurisdiction of the local judge. Then there's also good time parole supervision. Those individuals, again, are released through good time parole supervision based off of what the legislature has put forth for time calculation. So those individuals get out without any kind of board action, without any kind of DOC action. They are released based off of the legislation that is applied to their time calculation. Then there's another 2,600 or so individuals who are directly under the board supervision who were paroled or released due to a board action. And so, those numbers of the individuals who were paroled, they're very similar to that of the individuals incarcerated. 41% of those individuals are on parole for a violent offense. 15% are on parole for a property crime. Good time parole supervision, you see less offenders on parole for violent offenses at 25%, and property crime is a little bit higher at 28%. So I just wanted to give you some of those numbers, put some of that out there so you can see the landscape that the parole board is dealing with, and get an idea of the cases that come before us. So as Jolie mentioned, we want to hear from those of you all who are participating, hopefully get you all some answers. She put together a really great lineup of speakers. So we're excited about everyone who's participating today. So I'm going to leave you with just two things, two questions. I want you to know that the Board of Pardons and Committee on Parole, values the input of victims and survivors, and we value the input of stakeholders in and around the state, and we look to increase that, through strategic partnerships, just as I mentioned earlier, and continuing to grow our knowledge base. But what we would like to do is we would like to hear from you all, the service providers, and you all, victims and survivors who are participating today. So if, please share your questions, please share your comments. We'll try and get you answers. If not, by the end of this event, we can definitely reach back out to anybody. I know our contact information has been shared with you all. So having said that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jolie here. So thank you. Thank everyone very much. We appreciate everyone's participation in today's event.
Thank you, Francis. I'm now going to pass it off to Ms. Julie Calora she is our licensed social worker that we have with the Louisiana Victim Outreach Program.
Thanks, Jolie. Yes, my name is Julie Calora. I am Social Services Director for the Louisiana Victim Outreach Program, or LAVO. I'm going to hopefully start by sharing a short video. And Jolie, let me know if this doesn't sound or play.
The Louisiana Victim Outreach Program, or LAVO, is designed to compassionately address the needs of victims and survivors of violence. We believe that everyone impacted by harm has the right to be acknowledged, informed, and above all, to feel safe. LAVO invites victims and survivors to be partners in the parole and re-entry process. The criminal justice system is complex and can seem unsympathetic to the rights and needs of victims. LAVO can help victims navigate the often confusing and emotionally triggering post-conviction process. We do this through education, healing, and connection. LAVO can provide notification about upcoming parole and pardon hearings, updates on state legislation, and information on what to expect during the pardons and parole process. Having knowledge of what to expect can help someone feel less confused and more empowered. LAVO offers free individual and group counseling, as well as expressive arts and mindfulness groups. All healing services are available via HIPAA-secure video conferencing. LAVO brings together victims, survivors, advocates, service providers, and community members. We strive to create safe spaces for people to ask questions, to be heard, and to connect. All LAVO services are free and confidential, trauma-informed, and survivor-centered.
Okay, and I have a few slides I'm going to share now. So what you see on the screen now is the Louisiana Crime Victims' Rights laws, and these are laws that every victim
The
and survivor.
Louisiana
Oh,
Victim
sorry.
Outreach
Hold on a
Program,
second.
or LAVO, is designed to compassionately address the needs of victims and survivors of violence.
I apologize. My video started playing again. Let me start over here. Technology, so fun, right? Okay, so again, this is the Louisiana Crime Victims' Rights laws, and every victim and survivor in the state has certain rights and protections under the law. And LAVO was founded by a grant from the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement and was really created to fill what we saw was a gap in services for victims and survivors post-conviction. So that means after the person who has caused harm has been sentenced, is incarcerated, or is under supervision. So helping the survivors of those crimes navigate that process. As that video told you, we really want to compassionately address victims' needs. We believe that victims have the right to be acknowledged, informed, and above all, to be heard and to feel safe. And we understand that every victim is an individual, and you all have varied concerns and unique concerns. You don't all want and need the same thing. But we do believe that every victim and survivor deserves to be heard and should be allowed to speak for themselves. And so that's our main goal with LAVO, is to provide information and to help victims and survivors feel like they have a voice in the process. Because we understand this process can be really confusing and difficult to navigate, and we want survivors to know they're not alone, and also our community partners to know that we can be a resource. This is our mission and vision statement. I won't read it all word for word, but you can also go to our website, which is lavo.info, to see what our mission and vision statements are, and to also find out more information about our services. And as the video really outlined, our approach is really three-pronged. It's through education, healing, and connection. And by education, some of the things that we've done is we have created a victim survivor guidebook, which that's the link. It's on our website. It's really easy to find. If you go to lavo.info, you can click on the Victim Survivor Guidebook and you can download your own copy for free. And it is available in Spanish and Vietnamese, I believe, too, isn't it? Yeah, it's Spanish, Vietnamese, and English on the website. As Francis was mentioning, we work closely with the Crime Victim Services Bureau. We now are all located in the same space in Baton Rouge, so we're close to each other. We're in the same physical space now, so we can work even more closely to help folks get registered for notifications, to answer questions, and to meet your needs. And then finally, we provide information and updates on legislation affecting victims and survivors. So basically, whenever laws change that might affect victims and survivors, we can provide information on that and clarification. The second part of our work is healing. I'm a licensed social worker, so I provide free individual counseling to victims and survivors. And right now it's all done via Zoom. So, for those of you who are in the Shreveport, Northwest Louisiana area, you don't have to worry about getting down to New Orleans or Baton Rouge. We can just meet online through Zoom, and you don't even have to leave the comfort or safety of your home. So that's a real benefit. We hope to be offering some groups in the new year now that we do have our new office space. So we'll be doing some in-person work, but we'll continue to do work via Zoom. So there may be some opportunity for groups, for online groups, for those of you who are in other parts of the state. If you are interested in individual counseling or in potentially in joining a group, you can contact us through that website, lavo.info. There is a contact form on there. It's secure. Your information will only come to me. No one else will see it. And so you can ask your questions there and reach out and ask about engaging in counseling. Other healing activities that we have offered, I have a background in the performing arts, and so I like to use the arts when I work with folks. So I've done expressive arts healing groups in my individual counseling. If the client is interested in using the arts as an additional form of healing, then I also offer that. And then finally, connection. We do that through events like this, through webinars. We had done some in-person events before COVID. We would love to be able to do that again, hopefully in the near future. If things continue to improve, maybe we'll be able to do an in-person event in Northwest Louisiana. We can hopefully see you all in person. We've done focus groups to hear feedback from victims and survivors, understand what it is that you want, what kind of services you need, what you feel is missing, so that we can design and build this program to fit your needs. And then finally, through resources and referrals. So again, we've gathered a really interesting panel here today of service providers based in Northwest Louisiana. We want to continue to make those connections, and if you as a survivor are interested in a service or need a service that we at Lavo can provide, then we have connections with other providers that we can refer you out to. Again, all of our services are free to victims and survivors of violence, completely confidential. If you are a victim of a crime and you need services, you'll never be charged for them. That's another right that you have. And I think that's all the slides I have. So I'm going to stop my share, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat or the Q&A, and I will turn it back over to Jolie to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing that extremely important information. I hope if everyone didn't get to write down all those links, I will be sharing the contact information again, so do not worry. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Kristen Parsons and Phil Adkins, who are our Louisiana Victim Outreach, Louisiana Victim Assistant Coordinators based in Shreveport.
Hey there, my name is Kristen Parsons, and I'm a Victims Assistant Coordinator, and my partner Phil is with us as well. The Victims Assistant Coordinator Program was developed as a collaboration effort between the Louisiana Board of Pardons and Committee on Parole and the Department of Public Safety and Corrections Division of Probation and Parole. As Frances was sharing in the beginning, really since 2017, Louisiana has really tried to improve the justice system, and one of those areas that they've really worked on is victims and the needs of victims. The Victims Assistant Coordinator Program was created to enhance the services available for crime victims and survivors. So VACs, we consult on interagency safety plans and provide support services for victims and survivors during the post-conviction process. There are currently 8 VACs around the state, and more being added as the program grows. We are regionally located in the Probation and Parole District offices across the state, which is great because that allows us to collaborate and communicate with our local probation and parole officers. So what does a VAC do? Well, the VAC serves as the liaison between the parole board and the victims and survivors. When an offender applies for parole, a pre-parole investigation is opened, and along with many other factors, the parole board takes into consideration the statements provided by the victims and their families, and that's where the VAC comes in. As a VAC, one of our first tasks is to locate and contact victims to inform them of the upcoming parole hearings or that an offender has applied for clemency. Once we make that contact, we answer any questions about the process of the upcoming hearing. After we give the information about the upcoming hearing, we begin to gather information to submit to the parole board. We use a general format called a victim's impact statement to gather information about how the crime has affected the family as well as the victim. Because the board really wants to give the victim every opportunity to have her voice heard. And the victim impact statement allows the victim to share his or her feelings about the crime and how the crime has affected his family, financially, physically, and emotionally. These are all things that the parole board takes into consideration, as Francis had shared with us earlier. The board also takes into consideration if the victim or the family is opposed or in favor of the actions being taken. So let's talk about a few ways that victims can participate in the hearing. There's basically three. We can submit a statement, which we can assist the victim with. It's basically a voluntary right for anybody that's been harmed by a crime. And the purpose of the victim assistant or the victim impact statement is to help the committee to understand how a crime has affected the victim and what special parole conditions that they may want to request. The second way that somebody can participate is also speaking directly with the board. When the day of the hearing occurs, the board will allow up to 3 speakers in their allotted 10 minutes to speak directly with the board and tell the board how the crime has affected the family and maybe some special conditions that they'd like to ask the board for. And then the third way that you can participate in the hearing is just basically watching via live stream on YouTube. So let's say you're not comfortable even getting on the hearing. And so you can basically watch the hearing from the comfort of your own home and hear what the outcome is, which I think that's one great thing that's come out of COVID that allows us to do that. And also as a VAC, we can also provide information regarding the offender's record while they've been incarcerated, any programs they've participated in while they've been incarcerated, such as vocational training, adult education, treatment, and rehabilitation programs. We can also provide ongoing information regarding the case after the hearing is over, and we continue to be that liaison in the future. So just as Francis and Julie had talked about, one thing I think that's very important as a VAC is that we get people connected with the registration. It's important for them to be able to get registered so that they can be contacted in the future. The DOC maintains a database for these victims of crime. Once registered, a victim will be notified of certain changes in statuses of the convicted offender. And then, of course, to me, one of the most important things of our job is to be able to share resources, with our victims. After the crime is, even years after that, they're still affected. And that one great way to do that, like Julie was talking about, that we offer counseling. And then locally, of course, we have a ton of different resources that can help with that as well. Phil and I have both worked in the community for a long time. Both of us are very connected. We're very involved, and we know what resources are out there. And I feel like that's one of our most important things, is to get our people connected and get the help that they need. And so also, that's why we have our other partners here today, and you're going to hear about some of those other resources that we have here in Northwest Louisiana. So thank you again for allowing us to come on and tell you a little about what us VACs do and how we participate in the pre-parole and clemency process.
Thank you, Kristen and Phil, for sharing that process. You guys have been a huge help this last year. I've definitely seen it here in the office, so thank you for that information. I'm next going to pass it to someone that our VACs work pretty closely with, Mr. Tim Mills with the Shreveport Probation and Parole.
Can you see me? Okay. All right, cool. I'm Tim Mills. I'm a Louisiana State Probation Parole Supervisor. I've been working for the state now for over 20 years. I was asked to present today about how we come in contact and help victims. I came up with a list of five ways we normally come in contact with victims. First off, when the court orders one of our offenders to pay restitution, it's our job to do everything we can in our power to try to collect that restitution for the victim. For cases that pay their restitution in full, then they're able to get off supervision on their normal expiration date. However, if those offenders do not pay their restitution to the victims, then we're required to take them back in front of the original sentencing judge for a revocation hearing. And at that time, the judge has several things he can do with the offenders to try to get them to pay the restitution. He can give them a deadline to have the money paid by and set a review hearing. He can ask them to get the money paid, or he might let them know that he's going to extend their probation for an additional year or two. On large restitution cases, I've seen it where probation cases have been extended indefinitely to give them time to get all the restitution paid. Another thing the judge can do on those offenders that don't pay the restitution, he can have the restitution ordered as a civil judgment and terminate the probationer unsatisfactorily, which means they will not be eligible for probation in the future. Or the judge can actually revoke their probation and send them to prison. The second way we come in contact would be when a judge deems it necessary to add a special condition of probation to an offender where it says the offender cannot have any contact with the victim. In those cases where a victim contacts us and notifies us that the offender has made contact with them, we ask them to provide some type of proof of how they got in contact with them. And at that point, we can have the offender go back in front of the judge for probation or parole violations. Of course, the parole violations will be addressed by the parole board. Thirdly, when we receive phone calls from a recent victim of domestic abuse, we usually refer them to a local police department where they can file a report. However, some victims are so scared of repercussions from filing a report, they don't feel safe filing a report. Sometimes on parole cases where a victim calls in, we will allow the victim to come to our office here at Shreveport District Office here, and they can make a written statement. And if they have any injuries, then we can take photographs. And then once we have reasonable suspicion, we can follow through and see about getting the offender picked up and held for a parole violation hearing. Fourthly, for domestic abuse victims who call us and tell us they don't have any place to go, they have no way to escape from the victimizer, we refer them to Project Celebration. I have that number. Or if Project Celebration is full, like when I talked to them yesterday, there's also a state hotline for domestic abuse victims, and I have that number also if anybody needs it. Our office holds annual victim awareness meetings where our whole staff will come together for victims to come to our office and voice their concerns or feelings about being victimized. And the next Victim Awareness Week is scheduled for April 24th through the 30th. I'll be happy to, if anybody wants to write down my number, if you have any further questions from here, my cell phone number is 318-564-9514. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tim, especially for sharing your personal contact information. I'm sure a lot of people will find a lot of solace out of that. And also for how you guys work with victims. We really appreciate all that you do. So I'm next going to pass it over to Leona Fitzgerald with the Caddo District Attorney's Victim Assistance Program.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay, good. I'm Leona Fitzgerald, and I'm the director of the Victim Assistance Program for the Caddo Parish DA's office. So what we do is basically serve as a liaison between the assistant DAs in our office and the crime victims who have cases pending that are being prosecuted by our office. So we do a lot of different things. We talk to victims early on and set up meetings for them to come in and meet with the prosecutors and sit in with in the meetings. And then if the victim wants to come to court or is required to come to court, then we'll go with them. And if a case goes to trial, we'll sit through the trial with the victim or the family in a homicide case. If a victim is going to have to testify, especially unfortunately, we deal with a lot of child victims. And so we'll have them in to meet with the prosecutor, and then we'll take them and show them the courtroom and let them practice sitting in the witness chair and things like that, just to try to make them as comfortable as we can with the process. One of the things that we do also is just provide resources in the community for whatever the victims may need, whether it's counseling or a protective order or financial assistance through crime victims reparations, anything like that. We also just spend a lot of time on the phone with victims who can't or don't come to court, but they still want to know what's going on with their cases. We explain what all the different kind of court hearings are for. If there's a plea offer, then, we might, depending on the situation, sometimes we meet with them with the prosecutor, but sometimes we might just call them and explain the plea offer to them and see what kind of questions they have and how they feel about it. One of the other things that we do is help once a case is resolved, either through a plea or a trial, and depending on what the outcome is, if the offender is sentenced to supervised probation, for instance, then we would make sure that the victim has the number for probation and parole, and that they understand what the sentence is, and if there are any special conditions like restitution or no contact orders. And then if the offender is sentenced to prison time with the Department of Corrections, we explain that, and we provide them with the form that they need to register for the Department of Corrections for notification. And that way, as long as the victim fills out that form and sends it in to DOC, they should always be notified about parole hearings, release dates, escape, things like that we wouldn't even necessarily know right away in the DA's office. We also help transition them to, if there is going to be a parole hearing or pardon, clemency, anything like that. We're thrilled to have Kristen and Phil now, because we can get help from them and refer victims to them to explain the process and let them know how they can participate in the process and what the outcome is. So that's great to have, because it seems like more and more we're getting calls from victims post-conviction that are wanting to know how they can continue to participate in the case. So one good resource for victims and providers is our DA website. It's caddo-bossier.com, and you can go on there, and there's a victims rights section that has information for victims. It has a list of resources in the community that you can click on, and it has just some frequently asked questions that victims have with answers. I'm trying to think what else we do. We do a lot, but I'm happy to help or answer questions, or we get a lot of calls from people who don't technically qualify for what we do, but we try to at least, point them in the right direction of who they need to talk to. And our office is also very active on Facebook. If you want to friend our Facebook page, and there's often announcements about activities going on in the area and trainings and things like that our office is participating in. So I guess that's in a nutshell kind of what we do.
Thank you, Leon, and all you do during an extremely important time during a crime victim's life. You're there during a very, very important time, and we're very grateful for all of your help and for all that you do while working with us. So our next presenter that we have is Ms. Latienda Davis with the Caddo-Bossier Domestic Violence Task Force.
Good afternoon, everybody. And as everybody else has been doing, can you hear me? Mic check. Making sure. Okay, thumbs up. All right, we're good. All right. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Latienda Davis, and I am the president of the Caddo-Bossier Domestic Violence Task Force, located right here in the Caddo-Bossier area, particularly in Shreveport. I want to just start out by taking everybody through a little history of how the Caddo-Bossier area ended up with its own task force formed to address domestic violence. The year is 2001. And it just happens to be around the time where the state of Louisiana really starts to pay attention to data as it relates to homicides, where the homicides have been linked, especially violence against women, as a result of domestic violence. And so the Caddo-Bossier area is unfortunately no stranger to some of the most high profile incidents that of homicides involving victims who were impacted by domestic violence. And so in around 2001, a task force was formed to start bringing together those in the area who deal with domestic violence to try to start addressing the issues and trying to curb and counter those numbers and statistics that have been formed around violent incidents, domestic violence related. And so that is how the Caddo-Bossier Domestic Violence Task Force is formed. Now, to bring to everyone's attention, the purpose of this task force is to engage in activities which are exclusively educational, charitable, scientific, and for the prevention of domestic violence and cruelty to children in our area. One of the things that we know is that in a lot of DV incidents, children that are involved are oftentimes a part of that package and that cycle of violence that takes place. And so the task force not only addresses trying to find solutions to deal with issues impacting adults who are impacted by domestic violence, but also children as well too. So we try to hit both ends of the family spectrum. Since 2001, the task force has gone through morphing and changing stages, because anytime you have a task force, the purpose is to look at what are the problems, what are the issues. And so our task force consists of representation from various different agencies, many of which is actually on this Zoom today. They are part of the task force. And when we come together, which is about once a month, we try to look for different ways to start collaborating to bring more resources to our area to continue to combat the issues and the fallout of domestic violence. And so as we identify new issues, our task force will morph and it'll change to try to address those issues. Since the beginning last year, we have been on a mission to start increasing the educational side of the task force, bringing together training opportunities, as well as getting back to prevention. Of course, with COVID, it was hard to do those things, but trying to get back out into the communities and serve as a support among different task force members who are oftentimes out there, like Project Celebration, Family Justice Center, and so forth, who are big time active members, DA's office and others too as well. And so moving forward, one of the things that I can say is about the task force is that all the members there, we help collaborate to support each other so we can be able to better support you. And so the website that is for the Caddo-Bossier Domestic Violence Task Force is continuously being updated to eventually become a common information hub. So if there's a situation where a victim of domestic violence doesn't know where to begin to search, they can at least access our website and they can see a list of the members and list of contact information to get in touch with those memberships, because our goal is to have representation from every organization, advocate survivors who deal with domestic violence. And so that's something that we look out to. And then also, in addition to continuing to push education out there, because that is key to trying to combat domestic violence, is making sure that the community, as well as those who do it every day, continue to receive the best education moving forward. And so that's what the task force is there for. We support, we collaborate so we can better support you all. That's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Latanya. That was great. And the work that you guys are all doing for this area is extremely important, extremely relevant in today's society. We see a lot of domestic violence come up. So thank you for what you're doing. I am next going to pass it over to Ms. Jerry Bowen with the Northwest Louisiana Family Justice Center.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Jerry Bowen with the Northwest Louisiana Family Justice Center, and I want to give you a little background information about us. We are under the 26th District Attorney's Office, but we serve 9 parishes. Therefore, we collaborate with the DA's offices, law enforcement, PCI, and other local partners in our community to serve victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. And I say sexual assault not lightly, but PCI is the more specialized in that area, and we usually have to reach out to them on that. We are a center that houses a number of agencies in one area, and in our center, we are located in Bossier, even though we are serving the 8 other surrounded parishes. We have law enforcement within us. We have go bags housed with us. We have a FINS office for Bossier here. We have PCI comes and supports with us anytime. So we are I don't want to say a one-stop shop, but because we don't have a safe house, we don't have some things, but we have a lot of services in the area to help those that have been affected by domestic violence. Of course, if you do not want law enforcement, you do not have to see law enforcement. We tend to be probably the Bossier hub just because that's where our offices are, but we have free counseling for anybody that comes to us. We are funded through the Louisiana Law Enforcement Commission along with the 26th District Attorney's Office, and we fundraise, and so therefore no counseling cost to our clients that come to us. We assist with protective orders as well in the 9 parishes we cover, and we also have recently been able to obtain a partnership with the Shreveport Bar. We have an attorney that can go to protective order court with our clients. Of course, a lot of times people see our name and see the Northwest Louisiana Family Justice Center and they think we are a law office, and that unfortunately we are not. We do have the one attorney that can attend temporary restraining order hearings. We do not do divorce and custody, but we make lots of referrals. We are able to assist and make sure that you can get into the safe house if they have availability. If they do not, we often have our community partners or agencies call, and if they're full, we try to help with a hotel. We work to try to help with housing and other needs in the community. Some of the agencies have stated that they work with children. Ours are 18 and above, as long as the child has not been, harmed by the by the perpetrator, because obviously then if they're under the age of 18, they go to the gingerbread house and law enforcement is involved. But we make sure that the parents have what they need to assist the children. What a lot of people do not realize, and I just want to share with you, is we've only been opened about 5.5, almost 6 years. And there are now, Baton Rouge now has a family justice center that opened in the spring. And prior to that, there are a total of 6 in the state, one in central Louisiana in the Pineville area, one in Lafayette and the Acadiana area, and then one in Northeast Louisiana in the Monroe area. And each center has a different hub of offices located within them to find services for any victim of any type. We may not, if we don't serve you or we don't have the service for you, we are going to not keep you hanging. We are going to call our partners, call our agencies and community, and we're going to find the place to give you a phone number or an email or a name of the next person available. As most of you know on the panel, we work together all the time. If one of us can't answer it, we call the other, and maybe between 2 or 3 of us, we can find the resource that's needed to help you feel secure and safe and be able to take the next step forward that you need. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to have them in the chat as well. And we have a website and Facebook, and would love for y'all to keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for sharing all of those services and how you guys work with other providers in the community. It's really great to hear everyone working together. It's really awesome. And again, thank you for just sharing everything. Our last presenter that we have today is going to be Ms. Patrina Jenkins with Project Celebration. Take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. What a pleasure to be here today. And thank you guys for putting this on. I think it's very important. Please excuse my voice. I'm a little under the weather, so I'll try to get through this without hacking your ear off. Project Celebration is funded through the Louisiana State DCFS, which is the Department of Children and Family Services. We are under the umbrella of the Louisiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And Project Celebration is one of 15 programs throughout our state that are designated programs to provide domestic violence and sexual assault services. So all of our services are pretty much supported by the state. They are regulated by state. And we've been doing this for quite some time. Unfortunately, domestic violence is always in our presence, as well as sexual assault. We have various programs, and we serve 7 parishes. Our parishes include Caddo, Bossier, Webster, Red River, DeSoto, Sabine, and Natchitoches. So within those 7 parishes, we have 2 domestic violence safe houses. Although throughout every parish we do serve, we have counseling that's available. We also have outreach services that are available in each one. All of our services are completely free and confidential. We do receive state funding, and we also do some fundraising so that we don't have to charge for those services. We basically see any survivor or any self-identifying victim of domestic violence or sexual assault. So that means male, female, children, whatever the case may be. We serve all communities just the same. So our 24-hour emergency safe house, I heard of people refer kind of back and forth about maybe there's not room sometime. Our safe house is specifically for a safety issue. It is an emergency shelter. That means people who are currently in need of services for safety. However, if a person should come to us and they are a victim and they need to get out at that moment, we will find them services. We will find them somewhere to go. And fortunately, we do have places like the FJC that we're able to collaborate so easily, give them a call, even give Leon a call at the Caddo DA's office, and we're able to connect and make sure that that victim has exactly what they need to get through this. We do a lot of safety planning. That's very important for survivors of any type, especially domestic violence, because it's a very, very dangerous time. So we offer safety planning during our support groups. Even if someone were to just come in and just maybe not know that they were a victim, but just kind of thinking this relationship isn't okay. We definitely get into all of that, but safety planning is key. Anybody who comes through our doors for assistance, that is going to be the first thing that we do, because that is our objective. We do have support group. Our support groups are twice weekly for domestic violence on every Tuesday and Thursday. We have lunchtime support groups, so they're usually about 12. They too are Zoom at this point, and so far it's been very effective. I think all of the attendants really like the Zoom groups. They've been really good. We also have children's advocacy. We have a children's program, and we have a children's counselor who specializes in things like art therapy. And they are very, very specifically trained in children's services. We do protective orders as well. We have a legal advocate that's on staff, and she's got probably 30 years of experience at it. So she does those, and we also reach out at times to the FJC as well. We do have a 24-hour crisis line. And so that's 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can give us a call, and there's somebody there. Trained advocates are available each and every day if you have someone who needs services. The good thing that's connected to our hotline is that is our state hotline. So wherever you are within the state of Louisiana, this phone system will direct you to the program nearest you. So you can just basically use that 1-800 number. So that's an excellent number to have, and to give people, just in case you don't know exactly where they live or exactly where to refer, that 800 number is very important. And I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you now, if that's okay. That number is 1-866-411-1333. I'll repeat it. It's 1-888-411-1333. We have tons of cards here. We have tons of information. So if at any point, I'm sorry, it's 1-888. Did I mess it up? I thought, yeah, 1-888. So if at any point you guys need information, we do lots of outreach programs. We can even bring you cards by, we can bring brochures by. If you want more specialized trainings, we can come out and we come and bring everything. Everything's free, lots of information, and definitely there to answer specific questions that you might have specific to your organization, especially probation and parole. I usually laugh because when victims come in, that's like the first question we ask, because we know that if that's the case, they're going to take care of them over there. So we have a really good relationship with probation and parole as well. So thank you guys. I don't think there's a whole lot more, but if you have questions, you're welcome to come on, give them to me.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Again, so many resources available. It's great to hear about it. And I love hearing how everyone works together within the community. It is really awesome. So first, again, thank you to all of our panelists. We do have a few questions. The first one that I see in the Q&A, how do we find out, or excuse me, before I ask, if anyone has an answer, feel free to unmute yourself and kind of jump in if you think you know what a good answer for this. So our first question is, how do we find out about restitution that is supposed to be paid but is not being done?
When somebody's in prison, restitution is not going to be received until they get out and they're able to get on their feet and get a job where they can afford to pay the restitution. If somebody wants to know how much restitution's owed or something like that, depending on where they're convicted at, they can contact our district office in that area, and we can find out exactly how much restitution is going to be set up through our Cajun system, so they get paid once the offender is working.
Thank you for that, Tim. Our next question, what services are available to victims and survivors where there is no crime on the record, in spite of evidence that may be held by a crime scene investigation? What happens to this evidence? This looks actually like a few questions, so I'll start with that first one, and then there's a few other that are a little bit related. So if anyone knows about that, services available where there's no crime on the record.
So if a person is a survivor of domestic violence, it is not a requirement that that person is reporting to law enforcement. We basically go off of whatever that individual has to offer as proof. And all they need to do is self-identify in our case. So they do not have to report to law enforcement to receive any of our services. And that includes our protective orders.
Thank you, Patrina. I'll hop to this next question. What happens when the stay away order that was negotiated by the family justice lawyer is violated? So I think this might be specifically for Family Justice Center. If the stay away order gets violated?
Yes, if a protective order has been violated, it has to be reported to law enforcement. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of times people do not want law enforcement involved, but there's no way to bring out the repercussions of anything unless it has been reported, and law enforcement can investigate it and revoke, or put out the to have the revoke, or to put it before the judge with the restraining order. So that is first and foremost, it has to be reported.
I can maybe piggyback a little bit on what Jerry said, which is if a victim calls us and says that the perpetrator is violating the protective order, that's the first thing we're going to ask them, is if they filed a police report, because it makes it pretty much impossible for us to do anything about it if the victim hasn't made a report. And then I can't answer any specific questions about Bossier, but I can say that, if you make a report and there is evidence, whether it's video or recordings that you might have of the offender calling you when they're not supposed to, that should still be held with law enforcement. So even if there's not enough evidence to make an arrest right now, this minute, then there might be later on, if or it could become like a stalking or something that's a continuous pattern. So I'm just trying to maybe predict what the situation is for the person asking the question, but I can't really answer how the paperwork can be minimized, because that is, our protective orders in Louisiana, it's a standard form and it is really long and it's a lot. But that's why it's great to have people like the Family Justice Center and Project Celebration. Daisy Combs over there has helped me get a gazillion protective orders for victims that we've been working with over the years. And so you need to rely on the people who do that all the time, especially, and we always tell victims, don't just go get a protective order. You have to get a protective order, and you have to have safety planning. You have to have a plan. Patrina, I'm preaching to the choir, but it's really important to have a plan in place for whenever this person receives the temporary protective order or knows that you filed for one. And so it's very important to let people know that they have to take precautions, that they shouldn't just go file the paperwork and get a protective order and that's that.
Thank you so much for that, Leon. That was a lot of great information, I think, and I really think you hit a lot of those great points that that person was looking for. We got another question in the Q&A.
Jolie, before you go on to the next one, I have just one thing to add. The first part of that question was, how can people be taken care of with continuity and not fall through the cracks? I'm not sure what the asker is, if they're referring to victims in this case. I think they are. And I just want to say that I think part of how we can ensure continuity of care is through events like this, where different providers in an area are coming together to connect with each other and to also let victims and survivors know about what's available. So the more that we connect with each other, the better we can provide continuity of care. So hopefully that provides a little bit more of an answer to that one. I understand as a service provider that it doesn't always seem like there's continuity, but we're working to address that, like through events like this and through making better connections with each other so that we can provide referrals. If the agency you end up calling, like I think one of the other presenters said, if we're not the agency that can serve you best, we're going to get you a phone number or refer you to someone that can.
Thank you, Julie, for bringing that up. I missed that. I misread that, or I read over that, excuse me. But you're so right. It's an extremely important question to answer. And that's why we do events like this. Like you mentioned, we want to just keep that community awareness together, make sure that everyone knows who is where and who can service what correctly. So thank you, Julie. This next question, I actually think I can answer myself. Someone said, could we get a list of the various victim services, advocacies, or other additional resources within the state? So I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you what we have on our LAVO website. So again, I mentioned I will show everyone's contact information, but here on our website, we have our healing and support services. It's under the services and resources tab on our website. So if you flip through, it is organized by parish. We regularly update this. So I'll just go to Caddo Parish to see. And we have a whole list of all different various types of service providers, whether it's for sexual assault, domestic violence, just general counseling, family justice center. There's a lot of them. And like I said, it's categorized by parish. So I definitely suggest taking a look at that on our website. Extremely useful for anyone that is attending this event. And we also, I had a few questions that I wanted to touch on that were asked during registration. One specific, I believe it seems like this person, the offender was granted an interstate compact. So they said, how can I get help to be protected if they come back to the state and to protect their son? If anyone has a good answer for that about getting some protective services.
Well, if nobody else wants to go, I guess the first thing I would do is make sure that there's a protective order in place if the offender is coming back to the state. And I don't know, Tim, like maybe touch base with probation and parole here to find out if the offender is still under supervision and where and who, and have that information. But the most important thing is to have the protective order, and if the child is the offender's child as well, then you're probably going to want to go to court and get some kind of custody agreement, and make sure that the protective order applies to the child too.
Anytime we transfer a case through ICOTS, we try to make sure that we have the protective order included in the information that we're sending the receiving state, so they're aware of what's going on and that the offender's not supposed to be having contact with that victim.
Thank you guys for touching on that. Again, kind of bringing up the protective orders, as you mentioned earlier, Leon. I'm going to finish off with this last question, and I actually think, Tim, you may be able to answer this. How are violent offenders held accountable for not following a judge's order?
They're held accountable just like any other person on supervision or on parole. If they're in violation of what's ordered by the court, then we take them back in front of the judge. If they're on parole and they're violating their parole conditions, then they have to go back and end up facing the parole board. And most of the time they're going to be incarcerated, and we're going to do paperwork, send it down to the parole board, and make our recommendation on parolees, and then the parole board will make the final determination, and of course the judge on a probation case.
Thank you, Tim. And it seems like we have answered most of the questions that have come through. I'm just going to mention this. Miss Rose Preston, she wrote, thank you, Rose, for mentioning this. Hi. She works with a group, Crime Survivors NOLA. They provide a guide with some great information and resources, mostly for the greater New Orleans area. Their website is crimesurvivorsnola.org. So if anyone wants to go take a look at that, you can find some other resources throughout the state. Thank you, Rose, for writing that in. And thank you all so much for all of our attendees and all of our panelists. It is so great to be able to have this group come together and share the resources available, answer some questions that the community wants to know about. I cannot thank everyone enough for all of their help. It's been a great pleasure. And before we go, I'm just going to share everyone's contact information again. We will post this. I will be posting this on our Facebook, and there will be a recording of this whole event. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook. When it is posted, just check our LAVO Facebook. And I'm going to be sending it out to our other panelists, so they may be posting it. But again, thank you all so much. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
You do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.